Hello and welcome everyone to vpod.ai. I'm Mike, and I'm really excited to be walking you through our discussion today. Joining me, as always, is Susan.
Hello there. It's really great to be here.
Before we get started, I have a quick message for our listeners. You can sponsor this podcast for just $25. Your message will be featured across major platforms like Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, and more. If you're interested, visit vpod.ai to get started today.
That is a pretty amazing opportunity for anyone looking to get their voice out there.
It absolutely is. But right now, we are going to turn our attention inward, like literally inward.
Right into the human body.
Exactly.
Right.
Because we spend so much time, obsessing over our heart health or our gut health.
Oh, everyone is talking about the microbiome these days.
Right. It's all about gut health now. But there's an unsung hero working tirelessly in the background that, frankly, it just doesn't get enough credit.
You're talking about the liver.
The liver, exactly. It's this massive organ. It does absolutely everything, but we usually only think about it after, a really long night out.
If you know what I mean.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But today, we are looking at something totally different. We've all heard that old phrase, you are what you eat.
Sure, yeah.
But the central question we are exploring right now is, does eating fat literally make your liver fatty?
It is a really critical question. And the stakes are actually much higher than people realize. I think the biggest misconception is that the liver is just a storage unit.
Like a closet.
Yeah, like a pantry where you just put stuff you aren't using. But it's not. It's a processing center. It is a highly complex factory.
Okay.
And when that factory gets confused, or worse, completely overwhelmed by what we feed it, the consequences are significant. And the scariest part, it's usually completely silent.
Silent consequences are always the worst kind.
Yeah.
Because you don't even know it's happening.
Exactly.
So let's unpack this factory idea. We're looking at how fat affects this processing center.
Yeah.
Can you break down the actual mechanism for us? Like, what is the liver supposed to be doing when I eat, say, giant cheeseburger?
Sure. So under normal circumstances, your liver is basically the master regulator of your metabolism.
Okay.
It's not working alone, though. It's coordinating with hormones, things like insulin and glucagon. Its main job is to process everything coming in. Blood sugar, protein, and of course, fat.
So it's like a traffic controller.
That is the perfect analogy. Think of the liver as the central traffic hub for fat in your body.
Right.
When fat arrives at the hub, the liver has to direct it down one of three specific paths. Path 1 is oxidation, which just means it gets burned for immediate energy.
Okay, so burning fuel, that's pretty straightforward.
Right. Path 2 is that it gets used to build necessary body structures. People often forget this, but our cell membranes, our hormones, our brain tissue.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they literally need fat to exist. The liver packages fat to go out and do those specific jobs.
So burn it or build with it.
Exactly. And then there is path 3, which is storage. If your body doesn't need energy right then and it doesn't building materials, the liver packages the fat and ships it out to be stored in adipose tissue.
Which is?
Those are your fat cells.
Okay, got it. So burn it, build with it, or ship it out to the fat cells. That seems like a really solid system.
It is.
Because the liver stays clear. It's just moving things along. It's essentially a pass-through entity.
It is a brilliant system until the traffic becomes too heavy. This is where the dysfunction really starts to happen.
Okay, how so?
Well, if you are consuming a diet that is really high in calories and high in saturated fats, you are essentially sending way too many cars into the city center all at once.
Gridlock.
Total gridlock. The liver can't process the fat particles fast enough, it can't burn them, it can't use them, and it definitely can't ship them out to the fat cells quickly enough.
So the traffic jam happens inside the hub itself. It just backs up.
Exactly. The fat particles start accumulating inside the liver cells. And that is not where they're supposed to be.
Because it's a factory, not a warehouse.
Yes. This isn't adipose tissue. This is a vital metabolic organ that needs space to function. When the cells get completely stuffed with fat droplets, they just can't do their job. It's like trying to work in an office that is filled floor to ceiling with cardboard boxes.
You can't even get to your desk.
Right. You can't get any work done.
And this is what we used to call fatty liver disease, right? Mm-hmm. But I noticed in the medical literature we're looking at today, there's a new name for it. And it's quite a mouthful. Why the rebrand?
It is a mouthful, but the name change is actually really important because it's a lot more precise. The medical community is moving away from just calling it fatty liver or non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which was MASLD.
Right, MASLD.
The new term is MASLD. That stands for Metabolic Dysfunction-Associated Steatotic Liver Disease.
MASLD. Okay, let me parse that. Steatotic just means fatty, right?
Correct. Steatosis is the medical term for fat retention. But the really key part of that new name is the first part, metabolic dysfunction.
Because it points to the cause.
Exactly. It highlights the root cause. The old name defined the disease by what it wasn't, right? It was non-alcoholic.
Yeah, telling you what it isn't doesn't really help.
No, it doesn't. The new name tells you exactly what it is. It emphasizes that this isn't just about fat sitting there passively. It's about your metabolism fundamentally breaking down. It connects the liver directly to the rest of your metabolic health, things like insulin resistance and obesity.
It sounds a lot more serious when you put it that way. It's not just, oh, my liver is a bit chubby. It's my metabolism is actively dysfunctioning.
Precisely. And we really need to understand just how common this is. We aren't talking about some rare fringe condition here. The data shows that MASLD affects nearly 1 in 3 adults in the United States.
Wait, 1 in 3?
1 in 3.
I mean, if you just look around your office or your living room right now, if there are 3 of you statistically, one of you has this accumulation of fat in the liver.
Yes, it is incredibly common, and that's exactly why we need to talk about progression, because having some fat there is just the first step. That's MASLD. But if that traffic jam continues...
If you don't clear the gridlock.
Right. If the accumulation just keeps happening year after year, it eventually triggers a response from your body's immune system.
And an immune response usually means inflammation, doesn't it?
Correct. The liver cells become extremely irritated by all that excess fat. They actually start to swell, and this leads to widespread inflammation and cellular damage.
Wow.
This stage has a different name entirely. It used to be called NASH, but now, sticking with the new naming convention, it's called MASH. That's Metabolic Dysfunction-Associated Steatohepatitis.
MASH. Okay, so we went from MASLD, which is just the buildup of the boxes in the office, to MASH, which is the actual damage.
And MASH is very dangerous. It represents active injury to the organ. The liver tries to repair that injury, and how does the human body repair tissue?
It forms scar tissue.
Exactly. Fibrosis. If this goes unchecked, the scarring builds up and builds up. Eventually, it can lead to cirrhosis, which is permanent, completely irreversible scarring of the liver.
The liver just becomes stiff.
It becomes so stiff and scarred, it literally just can't work anymore. And that leads directly to liver failure or even liver cancer.
That is terrifying.
Yeah.
Especially considering what you mentioned at the very beginning, that this whole process is silent.
That is the trickiest part of all of this. You do not feel your liver getting fatty.
You don't feel the swelling.
No, because the liver doesn't have pain receptors deep inside the organ itself, only on the thin capsule around the outside of it. So unless it's swelling very rapidly, stretching that capsule, you won't feel a thing. You don't get a sudden pain in your side immediately when you eat a high-fat meal. MASLD usually doesn't cause any symptoms at all. Most people walking around with it right now have absolutely no idea.
So you could be one of that 1 in 3 group and feel totally fine.
Absolutely. You could feel perfectly healthy. But even if you feel fine, that damage is happening on a cellular level. And here is a key takeaway from the research that often gets entirely missed.
What's that?
It's not just about liver failure way down the road. This condition is tightly linked to cardiovascular disease. In fact, the leading cause of death for people with fatty liver disease isn't liver failure.
It's not.
No. It's heart disease.
Wait, so having a fatty liver makes you more likely to have a heart attack?
Yes, because it's a systemic problem. If your liver is clogged and failing as a processing center, your blood lipids are likely going to be very messy, and your inflammation is high system-wide. It's all completely connected.
Okay, that is a really heavy reality check for anyone listening.
Yeah.
1 in 3 people. Silent progression, potential for serious scarring or major heart issues. So I feel like the natural reaction here is to look at our dinner plates and just scream, no more fat. Is the solution to just stop eating fat entirely?
No, and I'm really glad you brought that up because it's the most common knee-jerk reaction people have. But it's wrong. Fat is not the enemy here. In fact, fat is an essential macronutrient.
Essential meaning we literally die without it.
Meaning our body fundamentally cannot function without it. We need fat for basic energy. We need it to produce hormones, testosterone, estrogen, cortisol. They are all built from cholesterol and fat.
Wow. Okay.
We need it to insulate our organs, to physically cushion them, and we need fat just to absorb certain vital vitamins like A, D, E, and K. If you cut fat to zero in your diet, you would get very sick very fast.
So we absolutely need it, but it can also severely hurt us. It sounds like we need a bit of a chemistry lesson here to sort this out, because not all fats are created equal, right?
They definitely are not. The material we have breaks it down by molecular structure, which is actually a really easy way to visualize it right in your own kitchen. It all comes down to how the specific molecules are shaped.
Okay, walk us through the good versus the bad based on their shape. I love a good visual.
Let's start with the good guys. These are your unsaturated fats. From a chemistry standpoint, their carbon chains have little kinks in them. They aren't straight lines.
Okay.
And because they are kinked, they can't stack neatly on top of each other.
Like trying to stack a bunch of bent spoons.
That is a brilliant way to put it, exactly like bent spoons.
Yeah.
Because they can't stack flush against each other, they stay fluid, they take up a little more space, and they don't clump together. So they are usually liquid at room temperature.
Liquid at room temperature. So we're talking about like olive oil.
Olive oil, canola oil, the oils you get from nuts and seeds. Also, the fats found in fatty fish, like salmon, which are your omega-3s, these are the fats that your liver can handle much, much better. They actually help reduce inflammation and can improve the liver's overall ability to manage that traffic we talked about earlier.
Okay, so liquid is good. The bent spoons, what about the ones causing the massive traffic jam?
Those are the saturated fats and also trans fats. Structurally, their carbon chains are completely straight and rigid. And because they are straight, they stack perfectly on top of each other, just like bricks. This makes them very dense.
And that density makes them solid.
Correct. They are usually totally solid at room temperature.
Solid. Like a stick of butter.
Butter, lard, the thick white fat you see on the edge of steak, coconut oil, palm oil. Also, the fats that are hidden in a lot of ultra-processed foods. Basically, if you leave it out on the counter and it stays in a solid block, that is highly likely to be a saturated fat.
That is such a helpful visual for everyday life. If it's solid on my counter, it's going to be harder for my liver to process.
Generally speaking, yes. These solid fats are much more likely to induce insulin resistance and inflammation right inside the liver. They are, for lack of a better word, sticky in a metabolic sense. And the medical guidelines are pretty strict on this.
What do they say?
Experts strongly recommend limiting those saturated fats, the solid ones, to less than 6 to 10% of your total daily calorie intake.
6 to 10%. I mean, that is not a lot. If you're on a standard 2,000 calorie diet, 10% is only 200 calories from saturated fat. That's like, what, 2 tablespoons of butter for the whole day?
Roughly, yes. It is really not a lot of room for error if you're eating fast food or heavy, rich desserts.
And that's where the traffic jam comes from. We are flooding the liver system with these solid, brick-like fats that are harder to clear out, while simultaneously overloading the system with total calories.
Right. Now, this brings us to something that I found incredibly surprising in our reading today, and I think you will too.
Oh, what's that?
We hear so much about the keto diet in popular culture. Keto is famous, or maybe infamous, for being a high-fat diet. Bacon, cheese, putting literal butter in your morning coffee.
Yeah, people swear by it.
Right, but logic would tell me that if I go on keto, I am absolutely destroying my liver. I mean, if I'm eating 70% fat, my liver traffic jam should be an absolute nightmare, shouldn't it?
You would definitely think so. It seems like you're just backing dump trucks full of bricks right into the factory. But the research actually says something different.
This is a really fascinating paradox, and it's where we have to look deeper than just the simple idea that fat is bad. There was a specific, well-documented study mentioned that compared a keto diet to a non-keto diet, specifically for weight loss.
Okay, and what happened?
The result was completely counterintuitive. The keto diet designed for weight loss actually decreased liver fat more than the non-keto diet in that specific study.
Wait a second. The high-fat diet actually decreased liver fat. That sounds physically impossible based on everything we just discussed regarding saturated fats. How on earth does eating more fat clear out fat?
It all comes down to the why. The key factor here wasn't the bacon or the butter itself, it was the weight loss and the calorie deficit. A high-fat diet alone doesn't strictly cause fatty liver disease if your total energy balance is negative, meaning you are actively losing weight.
Can you explain that mechanism?
Yeah.
Because it still feels a bit like magic.
Sure. When you are in a sustained calorie deficit, specifically on a very low-carb diet like keto, your body has to shift gears. Since there is no dietary sugar to burn for quick fuel, The liver is forced to burn fat for fuel instead.
Okay.
It starts pulling fat out of deep storage, and that includes the fat stored inside the liver itself just to burn it to keep you alive and moving.
So because they were losing weight, the liver was essentially forced to clear out its own crowded warehouse to keep the lights on.
Exactly. It clarifies that the primary enemy isn't just the sheer presence of fat in your diet. It is the dangerous combination of high calories, surplus energy, and saturated fats in the context of maintaining a high weight or gaining even more weight. If you are eating high fat, high calorie, and not losing weight, that is the perfect deadly storm for MASLD.
That is such a crucial distinction to make. It's certainly not a free pass to eat unlimited sticks of butter, but it really shows that overall weight management is a massive piece of the puzzle. It's the energy balance.
Huge. And that leads us nicely to the other major risk factors, because it's rarely just about one bad meal or one macronutrient. The people most at risk for developing this silent liver disease are those who already have other underlying metabolic issues.
Like what, specifically?
Well, people with insulin resistance or full-blown type 2 diabetes are at the very top of the list. In fact, if you have type 2 diabetes, the medical guidelines say you should almost automatically be screened for fatty liver.
That makes sense.
Also, people with metabolic syndrome, dyslipidemia, which is just the medical term for abnormal cholesterol levels and general obesity, it's all interconnected. If your metabolism is visibly struggling in one area, your liver is highly likely struggling behind the scenes too.
It's like a spider web. You pull one string like your blood sugar and the liver immediately feels the tension.
Precisely, and that's exactly why the medical advice isn't just a simple eat less fat. It's about managing your metabolic health as a whole integrated system.
So let's get really practical here. I'm listening to this discussion. I'm thinking about that scary 1 in 3 statistic, and I want to make absolutely sure I'm not in that group. Or if I am in that group, I want to start fixing it. If I want to protect my liver starting today, what is the most actionable advice here?
Based on the clinical research, we can really boil it down to 3 main everyday considerations for your diet.
All right, hit me. What's number 1?
Number 1 is calorie awareness. You simply have to pay attention to your total energy intake, not just the fat percentage on the label. Remember, the liver gets overwhelmed when there is just too much total fuel coming in, period. Even if you only eat quote-unquote healthy food like avocados and macadamia nuts, if you are eating 4,000 calories a day and not burning it off, you are severely stressing the processing center.
Right, so quantity really matters. You can't just eat an unlimited mountain of good fats and expect to be fine. What's number 2?
Number 2 is quality over quantity. And this goes right back to our chemistry lesson. You want to actively, consciously choose unsaturated fats over saturated fats whenever you can.
The liquids over the solids.
Yes. Reach for the olive oil instead of the butter when you cook dinner. Have the baked salmon instead of the fatty ribeye steak. Snack on a handful of walnuts instead of a block of cheese. It's all about intentionally swapping the rigid, brick-like fats for the fluid, bent spoon ones.
I really love that rule of thumb. Liquids over solids. It's so simple to remember when you're pushing a cart through the grocery store.
It is. It's very practical. And number 3 is personalization. Because this specific disease is so deeply linked to diabetes, cholesterol, and your own unique genetics, there is absolutely no single perfect diet for everyone.
Right, we're all different.
If you already have metabolic conditions, you really need to consult a clinical nutritionist or your doctor. What works beautifully for your neighbor might not work for your liver at all.
That makes total sense, especially with that keto example you gave earlier. It worked for weight loss in that one study, but do you happen to have trouble processing fast genetically, or you already have sky-high cholesterol? Going keto might be an absolute disaster for your particular system.
Exactly. You have to know your own body's baseline. But for the general population, that consistent shift away from solid saturated fats and controlling your total daily calories is the absolute best defense.
It's actually pretty empowering to know that even though this is a completely silent disease, the levers to fix it are right there in our hands, or I guess right on our forks.
It really is empowering. The liver is an incredibly resilient organ. It's actually the only organ in the human body that can regenerate itself.
Really?
Yes. It actively wants to heal. It wants to clear out that traffic jam and get back to normal. We just have to stop sending so many cars into the city center all at once.
I like that a lot. We need to clear the highway for it.
We do.
So let's quickly recap what we've covered today, because this was, and no pun intended here, a whole lot to digest.
Just a little bit, yeah.
We learned that the liver is basically a busy traffic controller for fat, sugar, and protein. But when we eat way too many total calories and too many solid saturated fats, that controller gets completely overwhelmed.
Right. And that directly leads to MASLD, the new medical term for fatty liver disease. The fat physically piles up inside the liver cells because it just can't be processed and shipped out fast enough.
And this hidden backlog affects a third of us, a full third. And it's usually totally silent until it progresses into something much worse, like MASH, where the active scarring happens, or even cirrhosis.
Or until it directly contributes to heart disease, which is actually the major mortality risk factor here.
Exactly. But the good news we found is that by simply swapping those solid fats for liquid ones, the unsaturated fats, and keeping a close eye on our total daily calories to maintain a healthy weight, we can actually help our liver clear out the backlog and heal itself.
That's the ultimate takeaway, yeah.
Before we let everyone go check their kitchen counters for solid fats, do you have a final thought to leave us with?
I do, actually. We talked a lot today about how this disease is notoriously silent and symptom-free. But I want to leave you with this question to ponder. The liver helps regulate our daily blood sugar and processes all our fuel. That is its main job. So if you are feeling chronically tired, or you consistently have that heavy mid-afternoon slump that never seems to go away, how much of that is just normal life and how much of that is actually a quiet cry for help from a congested, overworked liver that you've been ignoring?
Wow.
Ugh.
That really makes you rethink that afternoon cup of coffee, doesn't it? Maybe it's not just a lack of caffeine.
Maybe it's the traffic jam.
Something to really think about.
Yeah.
Thank you for guiding us through the science today.
My pleasure entirely.
And thank you to everyone listening. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.